Okay, we are live. Hello, Johnny Butabi.
Hey, Josh, how you doing today?
Good, good. So, real excited to have you on. When I started the podcast, I feel like I say this a lot, but when I started the podcast, I was like, this is a guy I need to have on because your story is so unique and so motivational that I wanted to make sure that we recorded it. And it's nice because I this one is not in my mind. I mean, I know you're Johnny Butabi, so it might end up being controversial, but it's nice not walking in.
Liability? You kidding?
It's nice to be able to come into one and just be like, oh man, we're not really dealing with controversial topics. I mean, it's fun, it's interesting. I like hearing from people, stuff like that. The last few, I've had a lot of good feedback because, even like with Polyamorous Ruth and with Kevin Evers, the Trump supporter, it was nice to get some feedback from people who said that didn't go the way that I thought, or I really understand where that person's coming from. And that's the purpose of the podcast. And so, but you, for me, you've always been like a super fascinating guy because when I saw you, the first time I met you, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but when you came out the curtain, you didn't look like what you envision a WWE wrestler to look like, right?
Well, not. So there's that.
Right. But I mean, back then you were doing Johnny Plinko. You were the DMW champion.
That was an amazing shape, by the way, too.
Yeah, right. Well, that was the thing. Like you weren't in the greatest of shapes.
It was a horrible shape.
Yeah. But
I delete all those pictures when I see them on Facebook now. Like I'm like, oh man, I looked like that.
Yeah, right.
I looked older at 25 than I did at 35.
Right. And so when I saw you, I mean, this is probably 13, 14 years ago. First time I met you.
Okay, yeah.
And because it was, like I said, you were the champion of DMW. You were the main event at the first show when I started SWF. And I looked at you and I said, he doesn't look like a wrestler, but he's charismatic, right? And I was like, and I like him, and I got to find a spot for him. And that's when we started the Heartbeat of America thing, which was my favorite. Your matches with Mike Rain were my favorite matches I did. They were so much fun.
What was great about that whole run is the Heartbeat of America is that it was not planned, other than just like booking me once, other than booking me once. And then like, I was not the Heartbeat of America. And it just kind of happened because I came out as a luchador in the same show.
Right.
Canadian. Like we were just doing all these things and we found something that kind of stuck. And I think I described it to you, and this was again like 11 years ago. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, but like a stoner.
Yeah.
I know what, and I'm not a stoner. I don't even smoke. So that's what made it even better.
Yeah. And it was
Hacksaw Riv Duggan. That's what I was playing right there.
Yeah. It was good. I had a great time with it. And then the more I got to know you, well, a couple things. The more I got to know you, the more I really was impressed by your backstory, which is why I wanted to have you on here. Cause I think a lot of people don't know your backstory. But then also what's been super impressive is over the years, you have transformed yourself into a legit headliner. Like you draw. People come to see Johnny Butabi.
Yeah.
You are a headliner at one of the biggest independent wrestling promotions in the country, really, in Hood Slam. Yeah. You're a mainstay there. And even older gimmicks that you haven't done in years, you show up at a show and do an older gimmick and people remember it and cheer it, and you're they come away. When I did shows, because my fan base were not traditional indie wrestling fans. You're not
a lot of people.
Yeah, I would bring in all these people who had never even been to a wrestling show. So I'd ask them at the end, I'd go, so tell me what your favorite matches were. And there were a few people that they always remembered. They remembered the Twins, the Commandos, and they remembered Johnny Plinko. You were Johnny Plinko at the time.
Yeah, it still was, yeah.
Yeah, and they remembered you and Mike Rain every time.
And it was us every show. And
right.
It was just every show was just us.
Yeah. That was the part of the joke, is that just Mike Rain and Johnny Butabi are going to wrestle. Johnny Plinko and Mike Rain was doing the Canadian thing. And
he never won.
Yeah, he never won.
He beat everyone else but me.
Yeah.
And I beat no one else but him.
Right. Exactly. So Yeah. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I'm really excited to have you on because your story is so inspirational. And there's a lot of people out there who I hear it all the time. Like people are like, I don't know how to get out of this rut. I don't know how I'm hurting. Somebody did something to me. Something happened to me out of my control, and now I feel this way or that way. And you've felt that, and you've overcome it, and probably still deal with it, right? And yeah. So let's start and just ask. So you're based in Atwater, California, right?
Yes, Merced County, right in the middle of the valley. So yeah, like literally the middle of the state.
Yeah.
I've been here since always. I was born in a hospital 5 miles up the road from here. I was brought to a trailer about 2 miles up the road from here. Here I am.
Yeah.
So I've been here since always.
Yeah, I've been in Sacramento pretty much my whole life, with the exception of the 2 years I went on my mission. It's nice to stay in the same place.
I like it. I mean, it's a lot of people like to move around. I get that, but it's kind of nice to live in Springfield. You know what I mean? Like, everyone. Like, I know the lady at the Chinese restaurant for 12 years.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like, if I go to a bar, I know who's going to be behind the counter.
Right.
I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a level to that. I was actually taking I took my son to a Kings game on Wednesday, I think, and we walk in, and I probably at that point I don't think I could get 10 steps without someone being like, Josh, what's up?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And so
he did that like Sharks games.
Yeah.
I go to I'll give you a nice little funny story real quick. So about 10 years ago, I'm dating this woman, and she's a big hockey fan. And she's like, hey, let's go to the Sharks game. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. Right. So we get to the arena, and she's like, okay, you want to get the first round, and then I'm going to use the restroom. I'll be right back. I'm like, yeah, no problem. So of course I got 2 beers. I'm wearing a Hood Slam shirt, and I turn around. There's Johnny Drinko, and I'm like, with 2 beers, I'm like, guilty as charged.
That's awesome. Yeah, so that's what you get when you stay in the same place for so long. Is that everybody knows you. My son walked away thinking his dad was a superstar, and I'm like, nah, it's just because I'm tall and it's easy to spot me, and and I've just been here for so long, everybody remembers, Yeah,
absolutely.
And so you grew up primarily in Atwater then?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Merced, which is, if you go 800 feet that way, it's technically Merced from my house.
Right.
So it's the same town. To me, it's the same town. It's like Turlock and Modesto, Elk Grove, Sacramento. It's Sacramento.
Right.
You know what I mean? But same idea. I was born here, and then I've just lived here my whole life, and I've gone to school here.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been here. I'm not gonna leave. Like, I've always told people, because I know you see pictures of my house and all the cool stuff back there and all the stuff I post online. I've always told people, like, I'm not leaving this house unless I move into the White House.
Right.
That's the plan right now. I'm not leaving here unless I'm going there.
Right.
Or the governor's mansion. I guess I'll work with that.
Yeah.
That's the game plan. Is I'm just gonna stick around here unless some good stuff happens.
Do you have family around there too?
Yeah. And me, I'm a little rebellious. Like we said, I kind of go against the grain of what a lot of people think. A lot of people, you've seen this throughout my career. Like, there's ideas that you can't do that in wrestling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you and I did exactly that.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So my family is originally from the Kalinga, Visalia area. And my grandfather, there was like 12 of them. There was a lot of them. I don't even know how many there was. Mm-hmm. I do know one of my, would have been my great uncle. He died when he was very young. So there was a lot of them, though. Mm-hmm. Anyways, they're from there. My grandfather, whose name is John Martin, he was the one that moved away.
Mm.
They all were Dodgers fans.
Oh.
Because of the area.
Sure.
My uncle Daryl played for the Dodgers.
Oh, wow.
For 6 seasons. My grandfather John, Giants fan.
No.
Even though his brother is literally on the team. No, I like the Giants better. I like Willie Mays. Your brother's on the team. My other great uncle was on the White Sox. No, Giants. Giants. So just doing things the way you want to do them, I guess.
Hey, you know what? That's loyalty right there. I tell my kids, my 2 sons are in basketball, and they're like, "What if I get drafted to the Lakers?" And I'm like, "You get drafted to the Lakers, I'd stone you. That's it. Like, that's it. I cannot accept such behavior."
My mom always tells this story, and of course we just had Christmas, so of course she tells us, you know how it is. Relatives tell the story. When I was in T-ball, I got put on the Dodgers.
Oh man.
I wore a giant shirt under my uniform every game. I'm 5 years old. I'm still that defiant. I'm like, no, I can't let it touch my skin. You know? So I was wearing a giant shirt underneath. It was the Hum Baby shirt with Will Clark. If you remember that one.
Yeah.
That was the giant attitude. I was wearing that under my shirt every game.
Nice. Now, baseball, big part of your life,
Big
right?
time. My whole family.
Right. So was it kind of an expectation as you were growing up that you were going to play baseball?
I don't know that it was an expectation. I just knew that like it wasn't even like pressured on me because I liked it. Like
Sure.
I remember watching family videos, and I'm like in a little bouncer watching the game.
Nice.
Like they didn't have to like be like, you have to watch this. I'm like, no, I want to watch it. And my mom even tells another story. Again, we just had Christmas. They would have like house parties, you know, when I was like 2-3 years old, whatever. And of course, this is the 80s. So my dad's friends would come by and they were feeling pretty good. And they would just like sit on the couch right next to me. The game would be on. And I would literally list off the guy's stat line. And I'm like 2-3 years old.
Yeah.
Well, this is Robbie Thompson. He's got 7 home runs right now. He's hitting about 280. And then the guy's just like, and they get up and leave.
Right.
You know, like what the hell?
Nice. You what position did you play?
Before I got injured, this is why I couldn't really become who I could have became. I was a middle infielder. I played second and short, and Juwan Hodges, who you've heard of probably from my matches in CWA.
Sure.
If I was second base, he was shortstop. If he was, or we were interchangeable basically. So we did that, and then every third day I would pitch. So that was what I did mostly coming up. I played everywhere. When I got injured, and for the people that don't know what my injury is, that's my throwing hand. I lost 4 fingers on my throwing hand. So what I had to do afterwards is, if you've ever seen Jim Abbott, the one-handed pitcher that threw a no-hitter for the Yankees back in the day,
right?
I took what he did. I would fill the ball with my left hand, trap it, throw it left-handed. So I taught myself how to throw left-handed. So I was playing first base because you don't have to throw the ball that much at first base.
Right.
And I still had a middle infielder's hands. So I was like a JT Snow, if you remember him.
Sure.
He was a fantastic. He was not built like a first baseman, but he was so good. He just happened to be left-handed. You had to stick him there.
Sure.
So I was playing, and we were like, I was making these crazy plays and all that. And I remember we're in a tournament in Oakdale, California. And it was a doubleheader. So I was on the bench at the time. And, excuse me. The coach asked me, hey, Gilbertson's going to come in. Martin, you want to warm him up in the bullpen? I'm like, oh. Want to know positions I played? All of them but catcher. I can never catch the ball with the catcher's mitt. I don't know what it is. I never have been able to. I remember when I was in Little League, the ball would just go. I'm like, Dad, take me out of the game. I'm not good at this. I don't like the helmet. You know, all this stuff.
Right.
But so we're over there, and I keep dropping the ball. And I'm just getting so sick of taking off the glove for the ball I didn't catch and picking it up. And I'm just like, screw this. And I just pick it up with my right hand and throw it. I'm like, I just spent a year and a half teaching myself to throw left-handed on a tarp hung on a clothesline in my parents' backyard to just now realize I could still throw right-handed.
Nice.
I learned that, and then so I'm warming up the pitcher, and then the pitcher comes back to the dugout. Coach, Martin can still throw right-handed. He's back. I'm like, team already, you know, whatever.
Right.
So, and they're like, okay, you know, because at this time I was also running cross country.
Oh, nice.
So I gained a lot of speed. You're like, Martin, you're playing center field. I'm like, all right, let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
So then you get toward the end, and I'm rifling guys out from the outfield
Sure.
with a thumb and a palm.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. Well, let's talk about the injury. This happens in high school, right?
Yeah, this was it was November the 1st. And I knew we were going to talk about this, obviously. I remember that day because it was November the 1st, Dia de Muerte, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember because it's 2000. And I haven't told no one this story. I just thought it was weird at the time, but I just kind of shook it off. I'm in 4th period, and one of the goth kids, it was goth kids back then, but he was a Mexican goth kid. He was dressed, he had the paint and all that. And I remember like we got to class early that day, and he just kind of looked at me. And I'm just kind of like, okay, that was 4th period. 5th period.
Wow.
So I remember thinking it was weird at the time, but I didn't think, and it wasn't like he was a bad kid or nothing either. Like he was like really, I think his name was Dave. He was cool, but like it was just kind of like he was probably hungover. It was the day after Halloween. Right. It's probably why he was like, and I'm just like, but so what happens is I don't know how well you're familiar with woodwork, a machine called a planer.
Okay.
So basically it shaves like small pieces off the top or bottom of wood to kind of get it to where you need it to be. So the machine we have there, you have what's called a guide board. You set your work board on top of your guide board, you pushed it through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the guide board that day. They didn't tell no one it was an inch longer. So while I'm setting down the work board, it catches, pinches, and drags me through the machine.
Oh, wow.
I didn't cut my fingers off. I crushed them off.
Oh, wow.
So, and then one of the other students was pressing the emergency stop button. You find out it takes 30 seconds for the emergency stop to kick in.
Oh, wow.
It takes 6 seconds for you to get through it.
Right.
It's a worthless button.
Right.
Which I know with you being in law, I think you understand why.
The personal injury part of it. I'd like this case. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
wow. Now at the time, so this is your junior year, senior year?
No, freshman.
Oh, freshman year.
Freshman. Okay. This is so I am literally I've been in 2.5 months at that point. It's freshman year. I'm a wide receiver on the football team.
Oh, wow.
That didn't happen, obviously. Well, we had 2 games left. I ended up trying out the next year, but I was just like, I'm just not feeling it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I like even the coach was like, no, you would have made the team, even as a receiver. And I'm just like, and we were talking the mental health. Like, those are some memories I want to leave alone.
Right.
Because I got out of the hospital and then we had 1 game left at home. So they made me the honorary captain or whatever. I got to flip, not flip the coin, but you know what I mean. Call the coin toss, I mean.
Sure.
So even though I got a sling and all that, and then I was just like, I don't.
Just not feeling it, huh?
I don't want to do this anymore. And I did a podcast last week, and it's well, I'm kind of skipping ahead, but I know we'll talk more baseball. But like even when I got to college, I just was like. Even with baseball, I was just like, all right, this story's already been told. I need to tell another one.
Nice. Yeah, I get that. So what was it? What do you think it was about the injury? Well, before we get into that, prior, were you, I don't know how baseball scouting works, but from what I've been told, I mean, you were very good, right? At baseball.
You're not going to get scouted in middle school, obviously.
Sure.
But it's a small town that people talk. The coach I had is incredibly well respected. So he pulled me up as a 7th grader to the varsity team. So I played for him for 2 years. Even after I got hurt, he invited me back. And that's why I coach. Yeah. I started coaching when I was 15. When I wasn't ready to play yet, I said, okay, well, he offered me, hey, do you want to help out with these guys? Because all these guys look up to you. Because I was the captain the year before. Even though there's guys on the team that are 2 months younger than me. You know what I mean? Like guys that were on the team with me last year. So I was always being kind of talked about, and it was just kind of like, oh man, like he got hurt, it's over. And I do remember Coach Terry, that's who it was. He was a PE coach, and he got a bunch of letters from students that were 7th graders when I was 8th grader that knew me, and then was like felt bad. I remember I read one. I don't remember who it was. A girl. I don't remember her name, but I remember reading it, and it set me off. And she didn't mean wrong at all. She was saying, it sucks that this happened. I'm sorry that baseball is just not going to be in your future. And I'm like, I didn't say that.
Sure.
And again, this is 22 years ago, and I remember that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever see me before matches when I'm just kind of like in a zone and I'm like smacking myself in the face. That's where that started.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, no, you're not going to tell me how my life's going to turn out.
Right.
And again, she meant well. But it just like, hey, maybe soccer's in your. I'm like, I was a goalie. That ain't going to help. It's like I'm in the same position there. But I was pretty good at goalie, by the way. But again, you're a middle infielder. If you're a middle infielder and the ball moves slower and it's bigger,
right,
easy. But yeah, no, I remember that just set me off like in a way, and I'm like, and I think that's when we got the tarp out. Like it was around then where I'm like, let's go. This isn't over.
Yeah,
this thing is not this way.
So when you said you went back and you said you weren't feeling it, what was it about it? Like when you say you're not feeling it, did you not feel, were you kind of getting depressed, or was it something that was hurting you? Were you scared that that thing wasn't like, talk more about that?
So when we're talking the football thing, right? Or even baseball, I guess both of them. It's part of like, it's when you've already had the bad memories or the good ones that you're not going to top. Why go back? And that's even like I said, the podcast I did last week, I was explaining I didn't do baseball after high school. And the thing was, like I said, freshman year, you lose your 4 fingers on your pitching hand.
Right.
Your senior year, the MVP in your all league.
Wow.
Like you don't like let it stop you, even if it's impossible.
Sure.
I was a switch hitter. I had to hit right-handed, which is my bad side.
Right.
So like that's the side I'm right eye dominant.
Right.
So I didn't strike out left-handed.
Right.
Right-handed.
It happened. Yeah.
A little bit. I remember getting the golden sombrero one day because I don't know if you know what that is. That's the 4 strikeouts in one game. I got that. That's the backwards Al Bundy.
Wow.
But there was things like that. Like you just feel like it's better to just move on and try something new when you have no expectation. And that's part of like with wrestling. And I remember being at the I can't even think of the doctor's name, but basically getting the stitches taken out. So this is around the same time I got the letter and all that. And I'm looking and I'm like, this would be a hell of a gimmick. And I'm 14 and I already know that.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, okay, I got to put a glove on this thing because if no one sees it and no one's seen it, if it's on the line one time, that's something you could do. And I haven't done it yet.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So even at 14, I kind of knew that. And my thought was always, this baseball thing, I'm never going to be as good as I was. It's just not physically possible.
Well, but your senior year though, you said you're all league MVP, right?
Yeah, but I didn't get signed.
Okay, good point. Good point.
I didn't get signed. I got a few offers, but I got like D75 offers, But I was I did that, but I was hitting 700 before that.
Wow.
Because I didn't middle school ball, whatever, but
the thing is, you're right. I played basketball, right? And so, every single year, sure, the competition gets harder, but you also get better. You know what I mean? Like there's a progression. And if you have a setback that puts you back a year or two, then you're going to be a year or two behind everybody that continued playing. And also you do have you do have an issue you got to work around that makes it harder.
Yeah. And one of these stories, of course, this is one I always nice little conversation piece I bring at the bar. I'm not 100% sure about this. I'm about 99% sure.
Sure.
Colin Kaepernick played in the same division as us.
Oh, wow.
I remember there was a tall kid that they brought in to pitch, and he gave up a 2-run double to.
Nice.
Not sure if it was him, but I'm like, wait a minute. The timelines add up. It's the same school.
Right.
He was a tall, like,
right,
caramel-looking guy like myself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I do remember that. So that's always one of my favorite little stories. I'm like, I think I get it. I'm betting 1,000 off Kaepernick.
Yeah.
And he's got the L.
So you have your injury. How long, I mean, realistically, after that, tell me what that do you mentally? I mean, you had to play at the level that you were playing, even in 7th and 8th grade. You obviously had some confidence. You're competitive. I know you're still competitive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What the injury that you had? Tell me about I guess, in personal injury terms, is it the loss of quality of life, the suffering, what was it? How did that affect you?
I think like even then I knew something was going to happen. Like even before then, I'm like, okay, things are going too well here. Like, even when I'm like 13, 14 years old, I'm like, I'm going to have to fight something here. The thing that really messed with me the worst, and I learned about them later on, they even made a Metal Gear Solid game called it Phantom Pains. Do you know about those?
Yeah. So you have pains in the fingers that aren't there.
It's the trippiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
It feels like your hand is being bent back through your wrist.
Wow.
And you look down and there's nothing there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've heard of that in both amputated fingers, feet, things like that. People will get, the nerve endings will get messed up in the area that you have, and that nerve ending carries down to where the finger would have been. So you feel the pain if the finger's still there. Yeah.
And again, at the time, like all I want to do is eat Little Caesars and play N64 with my friends.
Right.
I had to relearn how to play video games.
Yeah.
Because N64, it's a bit tough.
Yeah. Sure.
A hand and a quarter, basically.
Right. Right.
And the problem was the game I had that just came out was Zelda Majora's Mask.
Oh, nice.
Zelda games ain't easy.
Yeah.
But I beat that thing. I did end up beating it. I beat it the month everything happened. And then so I was able to beat that. I remember there's a golf course in Ceres, Modesto area called River Oaks that me and my friends, we always used to go because it was like whatever, I don't remember the amount it was. But excuse me. You basically could play all day. So you left on Sundays.
Yeah. So
my friends hit me up. Hey man, I don't know if you can do it, but if you want to play, we can play. And I was always like third place, whatever. One day they invite me back. I smoke them.
Nice.
I smoke them. They're like, what's going on here? But man, the Phantom Pains, like, and that was like, I know I'm sounding like I'm bragging or whatever, but no, that was like big in me building my confidence back. Because even just like stuff like that, I remember my same friend, he had a basketball hoop in his backyard. Everyone does, in this back patio. And then I'm like, yeah, let's ball, and like, all right, let's see what you got, dude. And then like I smoked them.
Right.
And I'm just kind of thinking, okay, no, this idea you got in your head of where it's not over, you're getting proven right here.
Yeah.
Are you going to stop now, or are you going to see this thing through?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the mindset I still have.
Right.
Because, I mean, I feel like I keep wanting to retire from wrestling.
Oh, that never happens.
Just doesn't happen. Like I was retired 2.5.
In the ring, I'm 22 years old.
I've retired 3 times already.
Yeah, right.
And I'm holding a championship right now. So it's like, I guess I'm not retired,
Sure. So, let's talk about that mindset a little bit more, because that's so true. I had an injury, a concussion that took some time to recoup from. And I remember going to a speech therapist. And for people who don't know, a speech therapist isn't there to tell you about it's not because you can't speak. They just help you with coping mechanisms because your executive functioning in your brain doesn't work right until it fully heals.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the things that she told me was how important mindset was to healing, because she said statistics have shown that those who believe they're going to get better often do, but the ones who don't, they don't. Right?
Yeah.
So what was it like? Was there a time, can you remember something that maybe that clicked for you, where your mind, like, was there a moment where you weren't feeling that way, and then one day you just said, no, this isn't over?
I kind of broke out. What was that again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, what was it that,
oh,
sure. So I guess my question is, was there an event that caused your mindset to switch to say this isn't over?
I literally recall when it happened. I was in the ambulance, and I told the paramedic, like, we got a game tomorrow. He said, I don't think you're going to make that. I'm like, I could be the kicker.
Yeah.
I could be the kicker. I play soccer.
Uh-huh.
I could be the kicker. We didn't need me as a kicker. We had a pretty good kicker. But, but I just never, like, my friend, his name is Ray Young, literally the guy that dragged me out of the machine. He was my friend since we were like 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that pulled me out of the machine, all that. We're in the office, shop director's office, because that's where he's brought me somewhere while they called 911. And then he's just like, dude, you just started laughing. I'm like, really? Because I was in shock. I don't remember it. And like I said, like he said, yeah, you just said, like, I knew this was going to happen. And then, so it was like, okay. Like, one of the mindsets I've always kind of had is now you guys got a chance.
Right.
And then I'm leveling the playing field. Y'all got the playing field leveled for you.
Sure.
I'm going to give you a shot now.
Right.
And again, like I said, it sounds like a braggadocious attitude or whatever, but it gets me to the next day.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've said this before on the podcast. I remember listening to a TED talk about a guy talking about the traits of people who are most successful. And he said there are 2 things that every successful person has. They have a superiority complex in that they think they're better than everybody else, and that they can do everything better than everybody else, and that they're going to beat everybody at everything else. And they also have an inferiority complex where it doesn't matter how much they do, it's never good enough. Right?
Yeah, that hit home.
Yeah. Yeah. When I heard it hit home too, I go, man, like,
yeah.
I remember when I became a partner in my law firm, and my boss told me that they unanimously had elected me to the partnership. And I went back into my office. I remember sitting there for a brief moment and being like, this was the last goal for me for law. Yeah. And I remember sitting there and I thought to myself, can I rest now? And I was like, nope.
No,
we're not done.
No.
I find that people who are competitive, people who are strong, people who are successful, it's never enough.
No,
it's never going to be enough. There's something about overcoming and winning that you just want to do over and over and over. There's something about the climb that is just so appealing.
You got to have a goal. I mean,
yeah.
I'm sitting, like, at this point, and I've only told one person this. She's going to listen to it and be like, ah. But I have a goal. I set a goal for myself for wrestling that is unattainable, and I'm going to get it. It's local indie wrestling. I mean, it's still important, but I've held 7 heavyweight titles. My number is 20. 20.
There's enough promotions. You could do it.
Yeah, but it's taken me 17 years to get 7.
That's true. But I got to tell you, Johnny, let me tell you, I think, especially in the indie scene, like, once it starts going, it goes fast. You know what I mean? When someone sees someone can draw and someone sees someone can be the guy, everybody wants them to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, how many of those 7, like, how many of them happened in the last half of your career versus the first half?
2 since the pandemic ended. The Best of the West heavyweight title and the championship, which I'm counting as a heavyweight title because it's literally called the championship. It's literally the Hood Slam championship. All right. It's arguable that it's even bigger than the Golden Gig. All right. Which I've held as well.
Right.
The first one, by the way, the first one to ever hold that.
So my point is that you draw. I mean, it's obvious, right? Everywhere you go, people come to see you wrestle. So I don't think that's unattainable at all. I mean, you may have to wrestle another 10 years and break the process. Right. Right. I've had 2 matches back and I always feel that way. I'm like sitting there and I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Yeah. And then I get out there and I'm like, oh, that's what I'm doing.
We just lose some of these championships just to get them back.
Yeah, right.
We hot shot the championship all like 7 more times.
Right. So yeah, let's move in a little bit towards wrestling then and talk about that. So when did you make the transition from baseball to wrestling?
This is actually one of my biggest regrets because I took a year and just didn't do anything. I'm like, it's like one of those things. If you don't do something, it's not going to happen. You got to like actually do it.
Yeah.
So I was 19 and one of my buddies, Brian Raymond, who is just got reelected to his 3rd term here at Atwater City Council. I
remember watching Bulldog Brian Raymond wrestle at SPW.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So it's him. He's the guy that you guys get to blame this whole thing for. So his family and my family were good friends, but I'd never met him at the time. Really, I just kind of knew of him. And I remember we were at a Portuguese fest in Gustine, and I just see him there, and I'm like, I had like a couple beers in me. I'm gonna talk to him. Hey man, I don't know if you know who I am. He's like, oh, you're John. Yeah. How do I get in the business? Yeah. He's like, we got a ring 5 miles down the road. See you next Sunday. All right, let's rock and roll. So he got me started with that, and then he ended up getting hurt. He was in a car accident, and he basically took him out of the business. So he had other things to worry because I wasn't like in an academy. He was just training me. Like he trained me in a ring one day, and then we went to the same gym. So like I would walk in and I'd see him and I'm like, let's go in the aerobics room and throw some heat. You know, like he would teach me heat. Like we were literally beating each other up in Shape City.
Right.
That's like how like I started training. And I remember, so I went to SPW was when I got officially trained because Brian brought me to one of the shows. Let me like, shake hands and everything, network, whatever. I'm like, hey, I'm so-and-so. And then they're like, well, have you ever been in the ring? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of trained by Bulldog. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Nice.
Like, oh, we're doing heat. I'm like, oh, I can do this. I know how to throw heat. So that's kind of how I got started up is I literally was trained in a gym. And then I started getting trained in the Colonial Theater by Samurai, Ugly, and eventually Dante, a.k.a. CJ Kurz. So those are the guys that got me on. Those are three pretty hard guys. So they got me in, and Bulldog. So anyone has any questions of why everything I throw is snug, that's why.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up. I shared this earlier on another podcast, but I knew I'm proud to say not Samurai, but at least Ugly and CJ. I was there when they had their first match. So my first pro match was their first pro match at SPW.
And Jesus was there, right?
Jesus was there too. So funny thing about Jesus. So I don't know if you know the story about how Jesus and I met. So we met because I had a backyard promotion and he was involved in a backyard promotion. The original owner of SPW, Rich Roby, contacted
RCW.
Yeah, that's what his was. That's
okay.
So Rich Roby called me and he's like, I want you to help me build SAC Pro Wrestling. right? And I go, okay. And I was the first guy. I'm proud to say this. I was the first guy to walk into the Colonial Theater with Rich Roby. And he's like, this is where I want to do it. I want to do a monthly. I was like, cool. So I looked online because I was looking for a ring rental. And I knew like Hustler and Schizo and all these guys who were Jim Cooley, all these old
names. Yeah.
But like all these guys, I was just like, like I like them. I kind of got them involved too, but I didn't want them to be the guys that held the ring. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I found RCW and I talked to Dave Touchstone, who was the guy who ran it.
Oh, yeah.
And I go, hey man, you got a ring. I got a wrestling promotion. We want to do some, why don't we work together? And so I talked to Dave and we came down there. It was me and a couple of my backyard guys and Jim Cooley and Hustler and Big Money and all these guys.
Oh yeah.
We all go down there and because I had heard I'd had other people tell me they had a ring, but it was like a fave. They didn't have a ring. It was like stakes in the ground with, stuff. It wasn't real. Right? So we walk in there. I walk in there and it's a legit 16 ring, 16 by 16. So I'm like, okay, this will work. So we worked out a deal where I paid for the U-Haul and I was going to transport the ring and we were going to do a show in my backyard the night before we did a show at SPW. And so I go down there and the trailer I got was too small. So the stuff was sticking out the back.
Something's got to go wrong. It's a wrestling show. It's an indie wrestling show.
Right. So we're like, what are we going to do? So Jesus and this guy named Wicked are both like, we'll just sit in the back. Yeah, it's been forever, right? I haven't seen him in probably 15, 20 years. So they say, we'll just hang out in the back. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, that sounds kind of dangerous. And Jesus is just like, hey man, I got you.
No, man.
So here's the thing that's funny is that we drive all the way back. Rich Roby and I drive all the way back and we get to my backyard, right? And I open up the back, smoke everywhere.
Sounds about right.
It's Jesus and Wicked, eyes red as can be. He's like, hey man, let's set up this ring. so we all set up the ring and so Jesus, Big Ugly, Dante wasn't in my backyard, but I did not know at the time that Ugly had not had a match because he looked legit like a pro. Like out of all of us, he looked like a legit pro and could work. You know what I mean?
Because he was in AEW at that time.
Right. The rest of us were all backyard guys, right? Like I was the one with the most training and I had about 2 months total, right? So I was not fully trained either. And but he went in there and looked like $1 million. He hit a blockbuster that was like beautiful. Crowd pops like crazy. And I'm like, oh man. And then at SPW, like Hustler was working, Joe Pogo he was working. And I worked a match with Big Money. Didn't go great. Sorry, Big Money. I was green. Outlaw was there. The guy who runs Next Level, he was there. Rob Wilds was there, So, but funny story. Ugly came out and worked. I can't remember the name of the guy he worked, but they blew the house down. Right? I mean, they just blew up everybody. It was a sold out show, blew it out of the water. Then Dante works with this guy named Professor Poindexter. And it was
I remember him.
Dude, he was great. They were both great. But Cooley, so Jim Cooley was running the book, right? He did not like that Ugly and Dante and all those guys were involved. He wanted it to just be his guys, right?
Yeah.
So Dante goes out there and has a match. 2 minutes in, he's telling the ref to take it home. And of course, you know how CJ would have worked with that, right?
So they go 27.
Yeah. Well, and it's his first match, right? And it's going well. He's not going to go home. So it was a 15-minute match. Crowd went wild. Dante comes to the back. Cooley looks at him and goes, look, man, good match. And Cooley was trying to be cool about it.
Yeah.
But he's like, good match. But when a booker tells you to go home, you need to go home. And Dante, I won't repeat what he said.
I already know what he said.
But it wasn't nice.
And I wasn't there. I was in high school when this happened.
Yeah.
I already know what happened.
And he got thrown out. They threw him out. And Ugly, to Ugly's benefit, he told Dante, get out of here. Right? Like, go home. Not smart. Get out.
Just wash the hands for the night.
Yeah, and so and they tried to kick Ugly out, and Ugly's like, I have nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? Like,
It's not my fault.
Yeah, and so anyway, it became a big thing in the Heat. And I remember Cooley coming to me. He'll deny this, but Cooley came up to me and was like, "So you think I did the right thing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I don't know. It seems like we had a good match. I don't know, you know." And then that was over.
Probably
and
the wrong one to kick out.
Yeah, and so anyway,
the house down.
Yeah, right. And so and like Cooley looked like can be a nice guy, could not be a nice guy, but his work, I mean, wasn't that great. So anyway, that's the story of how I knew those guys. And anyway, yeah, I went on a mission. Like I had like 3 or 4 shows with SPW, went on a mission, came back, and by the time I came back, Ugly had taken over. Yeah. Dante was a star. Those guys were running the place and doing a great job with it. And I was young and brash, and I just thought like I was just, I thought I was going to come back in and be like back in with the stuff. And Ugly was having a hard time. Ugly was having a hard time with APW. Everyone was, in all these different places.
Oh, yeah. That's right before when I showed up because that was like the big thing. I'm like, oh, we don't like APW. I'm like, I only heard of SPW 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I don't care, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I don't know any of this. I live in Atwater. Do you know where that even is? And like Frost is like, I do. Like Frost is the only guy that knew where I at least like, you're traveling all the way from Atwater?
Right.
The train? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, my family's from Merced. You're crazy, dude.
The thing that was funny about that though was that the first show, maybe not the first. I think it was the second show. One of those shows, it was right after Beyond the Mat had come out. Right.
Young Matt.
Yeah. And Cooley was right. He had like one sentence in there where he was snitching on Jake, on the Jake the Snake, where he's like, he told me if I didn't,
all right.
He has one sentence in there, and it's basically like, Jake told me that if I didn't buy him crack, he was going to kill me. And like, that's the only line he had. And so, but he rode that like crazy from Beyond the Mat, Jim Cooley.
Yeah.
So but Rich had brought the APW guys in for the show. And it was like Boyce LeGrand was there and Jardy France and a couple other guys.
Jardy Hardy.
Yeah. And they were, I didn't understand like what the hatred was. You know what I mean? Because the guys were good. Roland seemed perfectly fine. You know what I mean? Like he got along with Rich real well. All the guys seemed really good, but yeah, there was all this hate. And so when I came back and saw that the hate was continuing, I was like, I'm just going to start my own thing. And yeah. So that was, but yeah, that was fun. I one of the regrets I had was that I never got to work Ugly. And so I talked to him recently. I'm like, we got to get that match happening, man. And so I'm hoping one day, I know this is like probably his last year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
He's been saying that
for 4 years. Too. Yeah. So anyway, back to you. So did you start working SPW then? That was your first stop in wrestling?
Yeah, so I was training there, and what's funny, I only trained for 3 months, and they were like, get in the ring.
Yeah.
But again, I'd already been training for like 2 months prior to that.
Sure.
So like, it looked like I was a prodigy, but really I'm like, no, I'm about where I need to be, but y'all just met me, Hi. Right. No, I started with them, and we did, I just did a battle royal. Of course, you debut in a battle royal as a stupid mask character, the Crimson Plague, which we came up with in about 5 seconds. We're like, here, throw this on. I'm like, well, what's my gimmick? I don't know. Why don't you be the red mask? I'm like, why don't you be the Crimson Mask? Why don't you be the red plague? Crimson Plague, got it. Get out there. See you, kids. Which it's one of those gimmicks that was supposed to have happened one time, and it ended up getting booked. Like, hey, we got a lucha show. Bring your mask and Crimson Plague. I'm like, I hate the Crimson Plague. Like, I don't even want to be it. So it's like whenever I've transferred this gimmick onto other people now, like where I'm like, throw it on. You're the Crimson Plague, dude. You're fighting me, so I can deny ever being it. And that's become kind of a joke too. But like when I had my first match without a mask, and Derevko, he gives me a hard time from this still. My name was Righteous John Riker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was at a place called the Pig's Pub in Oroville. I think it was Oroville. Oh. It's an outdoor back patio of a bar.
Who was running that?
Huh?
Who was running that show?
Brian Cage.
Oh, nice. That was like
Brian Cage was the first guy to ever book me.
Nice.
So we're doing the match. It's me and Frost as a tag team. We're the Honor Society against Mike and Cass Hayashi. Well, they weren't. I don't think they were. They definitely weren't married yet. But this was when Hayashi was still doing the cross-dresser character, if you remember that. Which that's like some people would be like, "Oh, I forgot about that." That's Juice Lee. I got that. You know, there's some material right there. Let's just show pictures of Juice Lee. Like hey, but anyway, so it's us, and then so the show it's outdoors, and it's September, I believe, but it's like getting like, as you know, indie shows never work.
Sure.
The way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Someone went long. Someone went long. Someone went long.
Right.
This is my first actual match. It's outside and it's dark.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And so everyone in the match is wearing black except Hayashi because he's in the rainbow skirt and all that still.
Right.
And then some genius fan, I'll solve the problem, drives their pickup truck up to the ring and slams on the high beams.
Oh, man.
Now there's shadows being projected into the ring. I'm green. I've never had a match. And I know the finish is I got to come off the top of the crossbody.
Nice.
Ended up working well, but it's, yeah. And then my third match, of all people, was with Tim Thatcher.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's been an interesting thing.
Yeah. Thatcher's, I booked him. I think I booked him twice and I gave him with Oliver John. And I'm so glad I did. Those matches were so much fun. I always, when I did SWF, you know, I always did things that I thought to myself, I go, what would be a match that I would want to see if I'm, you know, and what is it that other people aren't doing? And I was really proud of the fact that I gave guys like you and Dutra especially, you know, nobody was booking him as a headliner.
Not a top guy.
Yeah. And I saw him and I go, I don't understand why he's not better. You know, he's not
great for 15 years.
Right. Right. And so I just said, let's put him in there and it worked so well. And so I was really proud that I was the guy who kind of got guys like you out there, got him out there. The Commandos were kind of already out there, but getting them out there and seeing these things. I put my show together before Hood Slam even became a thing. But then also it was so cool to see these guys who I really cared about and wanted to see go do Hood Slam, you included, and and then blow that up to the proportions that I always envisioned that wrestling in Northern California could go. Yeah. Yeah. So, and you were a part of that. So
I still, like, every time I do an interview or even tell people about this, I still, again, it's been almost 13 years now, and I still don't know how we did this.
Yeah.
Like, I do, but I don't.
Sure.
If that makes sense. Again, it's that thing you're talking about. You're not pleased with it, but you're super confident.
Well, when talking with Sheik, because we spent a long time together and we talked a lot about Hood Slam, and Sheik is incredibly, as the leader of what you guys were doing, was incredibly smart.
Yeah.
Because she knew that, you know, you had something there and knew that, you know, like the accidental phenomenon, like that was not an accident that she used that. You know what I mean? She was very smart with the marketing of it.
I came up with that, by the way.
Nice.
I'm not going to let that one. Yes.
I heard Paul Heyman one time say, or not Paul Heyman, Gabe Sapolsky say when he was talking to Paul Heyman, when he was working with him with ECW, he asked Paul, he's like, how is it that you've made this so successful? And he said, when everyone else zigs, I zag. And that's exactly what Hood Slam did. You guys did all the things like you're not supposed to do. You did them. You know what I mean?
A Giants fan when your whole family is a Dodger fan.
Right. But that works, right? It works for ECW. It works for Hood Slam. It works for the Young Bucks. You know, stealing all the '90s moves, doing the NWO thing with the Bullet Club, calling it the Bullet Club when everyone's like, you can't call it Bullet Club. You can't be got guns. You know,
we'll just do it anyways.
Right, and they just do everything they're not supposed to do, and it gets over.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but tell me about, I think it's interesting the timing too of Hood Slam, because if you think about it, all of you guys, this is my observation, not ever really being a part of Hood Slam, just watching it as a guy who promoted wrestling, was that you guys all had been working now probably over 5 years, all of the main players.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, but none of you had ever really, no one had ever believed in giving any of you guys the ball and letting you run with it.
No, other than Alexis Derevko. I will say that. Derevko did. Derevko did big time for a lot of us.
So
and
I would
still
say,
does, by the way.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Derevko. Like, he's the guy. He's the first guy I met in wrestling, like the first guy, other than Ollie, who was our trainer. But he was first day I was there at training school. He was there, and then Outlaw came in after that. But say what you want about. I know Derevko sometimes rubs some people the wrong way, but I'll tell you what, he doesn't. And the thing is I don't know of anybody who gave more dudes and women really more opportunities than him. And he doesn't need to do it. He just does it. You know?
Absolutely. No, if like we were talking about, like, I want to get my 20th heavyweight title. Guess where my first one was?
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, as far as like when Hood Slam started, no, it was always when the thing was, like, I think a lot of us were just fed up with the business.
Sure.
A lot of us were just like, we're getting paid $20 to do some stupid, like, 28-man tag match that we don't care about for a promotion that we don't care about, and knowing we're going to be back here next month doing the same thing.
Right.
We didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Hood Slam, like when it was kind of like pitched to me, it was just like, to me, it was like a party, but there's going to be a ring and there's going to be matches.
Right.
To me, it was a party with a booking meeting.
Right.
At first. And then it was like, that was a lot of fun. Are we going to do this again?
Yeah.
And then we did it again. And then I didn't do so well the second show. The third show, and then this is part of the accidental phenomenon. The third show, we had like 6 cancellations, last minute. And to the point, the entire booking, she rebooked the entire show the day of. And that was the show where it was like, oh, wow, we got something here. Like, we all knew it. And I mean, there was like 40, 50 people in the crowd. And then the next show, it doubled. Now we're like, okay. And then at that time, you remember this, if you did like 70 people for a show, that was considered a good night. Yeah.
I remember a show, the couple of shows I drew like 200 or 300, and everyone lost their mind. I mean, everyone lost their mind. Anniversary
show. 148 people. Woo! Best night ever. But that's the way it was. And then it got bigger and bigger until the point where it was we couldn't fit the fans in the building anymore. We had to open the gates so the people were watching the show in the parking lot just because we couldn't fit them anymore.
Right.
The Victory Warehouse, I don't think you've ever been there.
No, I never got it.
From where I'm sitting right here next to my computer to my bedroom wall through my den here, that's about as big the Victory Warehouse is.
Not big.
You should not be able to put 200 people in there. We probably shouldn't have.
Right. Fire codes were broken for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
But just that whole, like, and then like we started like caring again.
Yeah.
Like, we found something we liked and we were told it was wrong. It's like, actually, we got 200 people. Y'all got 47.
Yeah.
Maybe you're wrong.
I remember having some conversations with some of the other promoters, and, you know, some people were all for it and then some people weren't. Yeah. But the ones who weren't, and you know, the ones who weren't, to me, were the ones that it seemed more like jealousy to me. Like, they were mad because they couldn't draw. And they're like, it's more like, I've been doing this for 15 years in the same building for every month. And, you know,
that's your problem.
And I was like, yeah, exactly. I feel like wrestling, you guys were able to do it, but I feel like wrestling, doing it that way, sometimes people were asking me, they're like, you need to be in the same place once a month so people know. And I was like, I feel like wrestling needs to be more like the circuses come into town. You know what I mean? It's not always there. It's a more of an event.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you guys did your thing, you know, I remember someone saying like, oh, you know, like that's, they're killing the business. And I go, isn't the purpose? I was like,
we're killing your business.
Right. I said, it goes, isn't the purpose of the business to draw money?
Isn't the purpose of the business to do business?
Right. I was like, if they're drawing money, how is that killing the business? And the thing that's interesting, I do credit Hood Slam for making business better for everyone in California. I've ran shows. I've ran shows in California since Hood Slam has come on, and I have yet to have a show where at least 5-10 fans weren't wearing some sort of Hood Slam linked merchandise.
The whole territory.
Yeah.
Like, I hate the term territory, but you know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as that happened, like, everyone else started drawing.
Yeah.
Because like our fans would go to the shows and be like, well, who are these people? And like social medias, look us up on social media. And I'm like, oh, there's this show and there's this show. Well, especially Hood Slam's another month away. Let's go to that one.
Right. Especially in the Bay, right? Because if you have a show in Oakland, but you can go to Hayward and do a show, or Pacifica and see a show.
Well, you got people going to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Fresno.
Yeah.
I've seen Hood Slam fans go like to Bakersfield.
Sure.
And then, hell, I'll give you a straight up example. Thunder Rosa started as a Hood Slam fan.
Right.
I'll give you a big example.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. So me personally, I didn't go to a Hood Slam show. I was actually talking to Sheik about this. I didn't go to a Hood Slam show until it was already in the Metro and you guys were already selling 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And so I went with a friend. I actually went with DeRevco and Big Money. We came together with the three of us.
Okay, nice.
And we walk in.
Big fan favorite.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I thought was funny about the show was, like, I didn't know how I was going to be received because I'm Mormon. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do any sort of drugs, anything like that. Yeah. And I knew that, pot, it was stoner humor. There's a lot of party going on, the blueberry pancakes thing. I knew all about all of that. So I was like, I wonder what they're going to think about a Mormon guy coming in, and so I came in and I actually met, I won't say who just because I don't, want to give her out, but one of the workers came up to me and she's like, I hear you're Mormon. And I go, I am. She's like, I actually used to be a Mormon. I was like, wow, are you serious? She's like, yeah, I grew up Mormon. It's like, I don't go anymore, but I was like, wow. And we kind of talked about it and connected a little bit. And then everybody around me, I mean, there were people who were transgendered there. There were people who were gay. There were people who were, punk rockers. There were all sorts of different people, and everybody was nice to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it just, everyone was cool. And I just go, you know what? This is how life is supposed to be.
Oh yeah.
And so it was a lot of fun. And then I came in to a Sacramento show and I got to see this, I think I told you at when we saw each other, I went to Sacramento and saw the Sanctum of Silence match.
Was it me and?
I think it was you and Shinari. Yeah.
Well, it had to be Shinari.
Well, I think it was the first one because I remember the twins were super excited about it because it was getting over. And so, because I remember hearing the rules and I'm like, how's this going to work? Yeah. You know what I mean? But it worked perfectly. It was just, it's for those who don't know, a Sanctum of Silence match. The idea is that it's a match where neither wrestler can make a sound. Whoever makes this first sound loses. Yeah.
And Richard Shinari is a librarian. That's why it's a Sanctum of Silence. So here's a funny story about that match. If it was the one you saw, but I know I did wrestle him there in that building. And I remember it was during summer. So I was in summer vacation mode. So I was already, weekend at Butabi's out, having a good little time. Because Mike Green was always the guy with the wheelman. And then so we get there and I'm already got a nice little buzz going. And then, it's gonna be you and Shinari, Sanctum of Silence match. I'm like, oh, cool, and we blast. And I'm just going to the bar. I think I'm buying drinks with Ugly or whatever I'm doing. I'm having a good time. I'm like, it's summer vacation. I got this Hood Slam, yada yada yada. Finally, see Shinari about an hour before the match. Hey, what do I do out there? I'm like, we'll call it in the ring. You can't call it in the ring. But he still tells that story because I would just be giving him iggies. Like during the match, he's like, oh, I get it now. Yeah. Like I would go to like the middle rope and there was like a chair or something in the ring. It's probably his book. His book is in the ring. And like I get up on the top rope and I kind of go like, and then he got it. He's like, oh yeah. He actually told me that story earlier this year.
Nice.
It reminded me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess we did do that. But yeah, we called it in the ring in the Sanctum of Silence match.
Yeah, that was so much fun. It's a great time. Now back to you. So you transitioned kind of away from, and I don't know the exact chronology, but you were initially Johnny Plinko. You moved to Johnny Drinko, and then eventually to Johnny Butabi. And you're kind of known. I mean, you're kind of known. Johnny Drinko, Johnny Butabi is known for the party lifestyle, and I know you like. You do partake. You are. John Martin is a bit of a partaker himself. But talk to me about the gimmick and how it came about and why you like that one.
Oh, I'll go from the start, I guess. So the whole Johnny Plinko thing. So when I started training, and I told this story last week, I think people thought I quit after the first day, even though I did a pretty good job. I didn't tell nobody because at the time I didn't have no one's number. First off, because it was my first day. I had tickets to The Price is Right.
Oh, nice.
So I didn't come to training the next week because I was in LA watching Bob Barker.
Right.
And doing all that, which is kind of unrelated. But even my grandparents, well, if they were living, they would tell you. But my parents always tell that I like baseball and I like The Price is Right when I was like real little.
Right.
So I was like, oh, like my grandma would come on walking down the hallway and say, oh, grandma, come on down. You know, I'd be doing stuff like that.
Sure.
And so again, I told you about Righteous John Riker, and Johnny Martin isn't the best wrestling name. I've always said that is a guy that drives a NASCAR or he's the third string second baseman.
Right.
When you hear that name, you put that on a flyer, people aren't going to be like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't money to see him. So I knew I needed to come up with something. And I remember I was kind of down on my luck at a time. Unemployed, not doing anything. All I really did was I would go to my parents' house. I still had my part of it. I would go to my parents' house and I'd watch The Price is Right. That was like that one thing that like made me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Johnny Plinko.
Mm.
I walk out to the music. Easy.
Sure.
Easy. Problem is with characters, there's a shelf life to them.
Sure.
I can only do so many Johnny Plinko things. If I'm getting sick of doing them, I'm pretty sure the fans are.
Right.
Because I was doing like my yodeler elbow, the spin the wheel, the all this and the other, and I'm like, okay, I don't even want to do this no more.
Right.
Like, even the fans are kind of popping, but I'm like, I don't want to do it no more. So what happened was when I was in middle school, me and my buddy Miles, we dressed up as the Butabi brothers for Halloween. So I'm like, dude, let's go to the Halloween dance as the Knights of the Rock, or I don't even know the name yet. I was like, as this, and like the whole time I'm thinking, this would be a cool tag team. Like if they were just called the Knights of the Roxbury.
Right.
They're literally just the Butabi guys. Yeah. And then I remember at the Fat Cat in Modesto, I tell Sheik about this, like, because I think it was her birthday or something.
Right.
Or Jared. It was probably Jared's, actually, when I think about it, the time of year it was. So we're having a good time. And I bring that up just randomly out of nowhere. It's like, cool. And then, like, months later, hey, we're doing this show called Hood Slam. You down? I'm like, yeah, I'm down. Cool. You and River doing the Butabi thing. What? Oh, the Roxbury thing. She says the Roxbury thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I guess we're Anthony and Johnny Butabi because that's their names.
Right.
And so I'm doing the match, and I got into character. I got into character big time that night with an entire fifth of Ancient Age to myself. Rough one. But we're doing the match, and because the night before was Devil Mountain, where Johnny Plinko was the heavyweight champion, some people in the crowd started chanting Johnny Drinko. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, but I'm still Johnny Butabi. But like, I don't know how many people have seen me wrestle that have no clue why I'm called Drinko.
Yeah.
Because they've never seen Plinko, and I've erased the Plinko character for like 7-8 years now.
Right.
So it was like one of those things where I'm like, well, I was only Plinko and like promotions that are either dead or I don't even want to acknowledge anymore.
Right.
So why don't I just get rid of that? I'm doing it at Hood Slam and Best of the West, which is where I'm better known as.
Sure.
I'm just going to stick with it there. Like, and then if like anyone else wants to pick me up, I'm Johnny Butabi now.
Well, also, you've done the gimmick. Well, you got a couple other gimmicks now. You do the big leaguer. That's
Yes.
one. I think it sounds like that's more one of those turn you up to 11 type gimmicks. Even though you came up with Butabi and Drinko and others, it might be a portion of your personality.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this sounds like the one that's really you turned up.
Which one, Butabi? Well, they're all Butabi.
The big leaguer.
The big leaguer. Yeah, I mean, to an extent. I mean, yeah, no, it's like I said, like I needed a better name.
Yeah.
But the guy was there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I have to have even I don't know Johnny Butabi. Well, I've created a recognizable image at this point, I guess, of like John Martin would draw. You know, and John Martin does draw when you do shows in Atwater. I wrestled a friend I've had since the 8th grade in a main event who had never wrestled, and we drew 400 people.
Right.
You know, yeah, no, I think the big leaguer, it's good, and then like a lot of these characters. I mean, Drinko is easy to do. I don't have to think to be Drinko because it's best if I'm not.
Right.
So it's if I just go out there and then like the last match that I had, Knights of the Roxbury Return. What are you doing? Oh, it's a street fight. See you out there.
Yeah.
Street fight in a brewery. We got this one. No big deal. Now the big leaguers, it's good. I don't really know what it is, but all these characters I have similarities and differences. Yeah, the big leaguer, like it's just me being Kenny Powers to an extent, but then it's not hard for me to do that when in real life Kenny Powers was a middle school PE teacher, former ball player.
Right.
Here we are.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yeah. And now you're doing a pirate gimmick.
Oh, that's
how did that come
a whole new story. That whole thing happened entirely by accident. So Sheik hits me up, or not hits me up, just in like our Hood Slam, we have like a little group chat. Basically, so we don't have to do booking meetings.
Right.
We're going to introduce this thing called a championship. We're not going to tell no one it is. We're just going to say there's going to be a new championship. We're not going to write it, because if we write it, you could see that it's a championship.
Right.
We're just saying there's a new championship. And I'm thinking, I hit her up. I'm like, I got I still got the Jack Sparrow costume. I'll ref the finals. That was all I wanted to do. And then she's like, no. Or it was like one of those things where it was kind of explained like, well, that'll ruin the surprise, which made sense. And somehow, one way or another, it was just like, yeah, we're doing a tournament. Johnny's winning. I'm like, I'm a pirate now. And this is like one of those characters. I had no confidence in it. No. I literally had no confidence in it at first. And I was actually like 1 or 2 nights ago, I was watching some of the first matches I did with it. It's not there. Like it's you could see it's not there. But then you watch the last few, I found it. Right. Like, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it right. Okay, what could I do? Okay, so I'm going to wear a hook during my matches, and I'm going to hook the leg. I can hit the ropes when my opponent's on the top rope and rock the boat. They fall down. Right. What else can I do? Like all these other little puns or just character traits. Well, my name is Johnny. Well, the Roxbury Bottom is now called the Johnny Depths. Nice. The walk-off elbow that the big leaguer does is now the walk-off the plank. Nice. So it's like you kind of like, I'm like, okay, now I'm like,
Now you're in.
I found this one now. Like, I can't wait to do it again, because I thought, like, the joke was always that if you win the championship, you become a pirate. It makes you become a pirate just because you're holding it. And now it's like, because we want to, originally I thought it was going to be a hot potato.
Right.
Like, it'd be kind of funny, like, oh, let's see what happens when Cereal Man is the champ. It'll be Captain Crunch or something like that, you know? Like, and now it's like, oh boy, I'm probably going to be holding this thing for a while.
Right.
That's kind of like the consensus right now, is that you're going to have to hold that thing for a while. And when I lose it, I'm probably getting it right back, just to get the gimmick over that I came back as Draco and went right back to the captain. But I don't know what the plan is. But I'm like, this has like been one of the most surprising and fun things. Like I feel like I've actually added something else that, like, people will be like, you know, if I'm lucky enough to be here in 20 years, people will still be like, you remember when you were a pirate? I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I do. That was a blast.
What's interesting about wrestling, and this is what I love, is there's so many things that people don't understand about how things, they're the best when they organically happen. You know what I mean? Like, when things that you didn't come up with or you didn't think about, like, I really didn't think, like you said, when you came into SWF, I was just like, hey, I have this idea of what I want to do. You worked at the Tonga Kid, and you worked, I can't remember who the other guy was.
I worked Revco.
The Revco and the Tonga
And then I was in the ladder match.
Right. And then, and so I was just sitting there and I was like, it's like, what am I going to do with him? You know, how do I do this? And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, you're going to be Johnny Plinko, then you're going to be Wani Plinko, you know, and all this stuff, and, you know, trying to pretend like you're trying to, because the idea, for everybody who doesn't know, the idea is I was doing a ladder match where the gimmick was, it was people from different countries. The international ladder match where everybody from different countries would work, and then there'd be an SWF flag at the top, and whoever got it would get a championship shot later on down the road. And the idea was, we had, of course, the American guy was Jody Christopherson, and he looked like $1 million at the time. So I was like, I want to
be good guy. Great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And I was like, okay, so Chris Christopherson's son, actually, which is what was so interesting, and but he would never tell you that.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny is I thought that was a gimmick. I thought, I was like, oh, that's a great gimmick. You're acting like you're Chris Christopherson's son, and I'm like, then he has like pictures on Facebook, like, oh, he's actually Chris Christopherson's son.
Yeah,
I really thought, I was like, oh man, I might be just Johnny Cash, you know?
Yeah, you know what? The funny story about him was that I had heard this, so it's anecdotal. I don't know if it's 100% true, but when he went for his tryout, you know, Triple H had done, I think, one of the Blade movies with Chris Christopherson.
Yes, and Blade 3, Trinity.
Yeah, so Jody met Triple H and didn't tell him that I'm Chris Christopherson's son. And it was actually Jim Ross who told Triple H that's Chris Christopherson's son. So Triple H came up to him and said to him, like, how come you didn't tell me? And he just said, because I want to get here on my name. You know?
Absolutely.
And like, huge respect for that, right? I mean,
because he never dropped that. Like I said, I knew him for a year before I knew that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He was so humble about that. But anyway, but it was so organic when you came in, because it really got over. You got it over. And I said, let's use this again. Let's see what we can do with it. And everything you did was so fun. And so now back to this mindset thing I want to talk about, because like I said, you know, a lot of the people who are listening, there might be some people who are having hard times, but none of them got their fingers cut off in their prime.
Well, you don't know that.
Oh, that's true. Maybe. But I mean, I think the reason I say this is I traditionally send off. I was supposed to have this week. I was supposed to have a motivational speaker come on, and I asked him questions, and but then he canceled, and I didn't have it up very long. But I got one question, and it was actually for me, and it really frustrated me, because I don't know if frustrated is the best word for it, but they said something along the lines of, because I try to be very motivational, you know, on Facebook and all those things, and the person said, they're all anonymous, so I'm not going to say who it was, but the person said, you know, Josh, you go on here, and you always talk about how you can do anything and how anybody can do anything they want if you just put your mind to it. And, you know, you'll talk about mindset, but you don't know my story. You know, you don't understand my story and the things that I've gone through. it hurts me. It's frustrating for me that you come on here as a rich white guy telling me that, when you have all these advantages, when you essentially you don't know my story, right?
Yeah.
And it really bothered me because I was like, you don't know my story.
No.
Like, yes, you're seeing the end result of 20 years of bone crushing, soul searching work is what you're seeing now. I didn't come from a fancy family. Like, my family was lower middle class, upper lower class, maybe,
Yeah.
My dad, had issues with drugs for a long time. Clean now, has been for 25 years. Great man.
Excellent.
Struggled, struggled. And that really put a damper on me. I had a lot of things that, there wasn't a lot of financial backing. I had a lot of support. My mom and my dad were very supportive of all the things I wanted to do, but financially it wasn't there. And so and then I had a conversation with somebody else who was having a real struggle. And I just, I kept thinking about this person, and I was like, you know what? Like, you don't know my story. The last 3 or 4 years for me have been pretty nightmarish. You know what I mean? Like, I've had a lot of really, really hard times, but I wouldn't wish with some of the things I've gone through over the last 3 or 4 years on my worst enemy, but I've also had some of the greatest successes of my life in that exact same time.
Yeah.
And so you can't control what happens to you, but you can choose whether you get up in the morning or not,
Oh, yeah.
So when my alarm goes off at 4:45 in the morning, like, greater than 50% of the time, I don't want to get up. I just do.
You got to do it.
Yeah. Because the thing is that if you just sit there, that time is going to pass. Like, one day, your depression, your anxiety, the rough times, you've seen this, they're going to pass. And if you don't do anything in that time, if you let that situation control you, you're going to be in the exact same spot when you come out of it that you were when you got in. Or worse.
Worse. I'd say worse, because you're getting passed up by everybody else. And it's
right.
like, people say you don't know my story. Well, first off, I didn't ask.
Right.
People need to understand that, like, your victimhood, your rough times, those are yours. It don't matter to me. Maybe it does if I care about you or not. And I'm not an uncaring person, but you got to understand that, like, I'm not gonna, what do you want me to do? Give me $3 million? Like, I don't have it. What do you want me to do? Like, you got to kick out. If you don't kick out, you're going to get kicked down. That is the point. And the way I've always said it, I've always said this, and I know you've seen me post this, the story ends one way.
Right.
And if the story hasn't ended yet, if I haven't won yet, the story isn't over yet.
Yeah,
that's exactly the way I live. And, like, if you don't have that mindset, you're going to be defeated your whole life.
Right. I've actually, I've talked about that with some people. They've said things like, well, maybe you can do that, but I don't think, you don't know my capability. And I'm like, well, you've already lost.
Then you didn't show it.
Yeah. You didn't even try. I mean, it's a silly adage. I know people have heard it. It's tired, but it's true. The greatest failures, or maybe this isn't exactly the way it is, but I would rather have tried and failed than not tried at all. Like, how many dreams have been lost because they didn't even try?
I agree. Yeah, I've always said that the greatest voice we have ever heard has never been heard. That's right. Like one thing. Like, when I was I'm like, who's the greatest singer of all time? It's probably like Bob Smith.
Yeah,
you don't know.
Yeah, who just out of fear or out of sadness, like, this conversation I had with somebody just a couple of days ago. They were in a real tough spot, and but I just said the same thing. I go, you know what, like, I know you have depression. I know you have anxiety. And I'm not talking about somebody who has, like, a chemical imbalance depression. That's a different animal, who chemically has depression. I'm talking about situational depression.
Yeah.
Right?
That's down my life.
Right. And I tell them, I go, listen, like, there's always going to be a reason to be sad. Everybody I know is depressed. Everybody I know has moments of anxiety. Everyone gets sad. Everyone gets down. Everyone gets nervous. The thing that separates the winners and the losers are the ones who can keep going even when they're sad, even when they're nervous, even
it isn't easy.
What's that?
It really isn't easy. It's. I mean, like Rocky always said, nothing hits harder than life, right?
Right.
It's just a fact. Like you gotta just go with it. I mean, you just gotta do it. I mean, it's rough. I mean, there's rough times. I'll tell you right now, in 2020, things got dark for me personally, and I don't want to talk too much about it. I'll just actually, you know what? I will talk about it. I tried to break my own fist on my wall because I just didn't care. Like I wanted to go to the hospital just to get out of my house. It got bad. It got real bad. I mean, I was drinking. I had a collection of bottles. I literally would throw a bottle, plastic bottle, in the corner of my bedroom. Once I finished it, from March to June, we got to 30, maybe 40.
Wow.
I drank, I don't know how many gallons worth of vodka and rum, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it got to the point where you're looking forward to not looking forward to nothing.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
But then but what did I do at 2 p.m? I was throwing weights. I was still doing it. But if it gets tough. It really does. I mean, mental health is no joke. And I've learned that more and more the last like 10, 7, whatever years. It beats you down harder than anything else.
Yeah.
Especially now.
I took my son to a Kings game, like I said, on Wednesday, and we had a long conversation. There's a lot of stuff going on in our, personal lives. And, he's 16 years old, trying to figure out where he wants to go. Meanwhile, all this other stuff is going on. And so he was asking me just about everything you could think of, family history, life, why certain people are the way they are, mental health issues, girls. We talked about everything. And the thing that was I tried to explain to him is I was like, I have, we talked about my dad, we talked about the issues that he had and how struggle it was. And I told him, I go, dude, I got to tell you, all those years that I was mad at him for what he did, now that I'm 41 years old and I got kids and I have responsibilities, and I have a much different perspective of what he was going through. When age brings perspective. And so I told him, I go, your life, as you get older, things are just going to get, this may sound dark, but progressively harder.
It is.
Life gets complicated. You can't control people's actions. People closest to you will do things to you to hurt you.
Yeah.
It just happen. You can't control people. But the only thing you can control is you've got goals, you've got things. Don't let anybody stop you. My son wants to be a musician. He's a great guitarist. He's in honor choir. Real great. Nice. He's talented. So I told him, I go, the lawyer in me wants to tell you, go to college, figure out this other thing, figure out a plan B.
Yeah.
And I still will tell you need to go to college, right?
Backup plan. Yeah.
But don't ever let me tell you that you can't do it. And if I do tell you can't do it, don't believe me.
Yeah, don't listen.
If you got something that makes your heart sing, if you've got something that brings you joy, your passion, your love, I would rather you die on that hill, penniless, broke, than being a rich accountant somewhere hating every minute of your life.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, but I want him to have that mindset that you're talking about, the mindset of the story only ends one way. Even in those moments when you're sad during COVID, when you're hurt, you're self-inflicted. Some of it's self-inflicted, right? I mean, you're still grinding. You're still trying to improve. Do you think there's something that you have that makes you do that?
I just always wanted to be okay. So there's always this saying in the wrestling business, bookers will tell you, it doesn't matter if you're going to lose, right? It's work.
Right.
I've always said, well, if it don't matter, put me over.
Right.
If it don't matter, put me over. I mean, it's like, as long as it don't matter, I guess I'll just win.
Right.
Like I just, and again, like people that have worked with me, you know that I'm pretty generous in the ring, but
Sure.
I just don't, I don't like second place.
Right.
I don't like second place. When I was a kid playing little league soccer, my team, basketball even, my team usually won the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So at a very early age, I was used to like our team getting a trophy, and it was never a participation one.
Right.
I don't want a participation trophy.
Right.
Ever.
Right. Right.
Like I don't give me the Intercontinental title.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Like I would be like, no, Universal title, let's go.
You
I
know,
just kind of like the mindset I have. I mean, just like if I'm not the top draw, if I'm not the top guy, and sometimes I'm not, no big deal. But it's like that's where I'm going. And again, like I've always said, if the story doesn't end one way, it's not over yet.
right. I was going to ask you that because I think that this is something that I've noticed too, and that is that you obviously have a confidence in yourself, and I think that's really important. It doesn't matter whether my first job out of high school was working in a warehouse. Then I became a missionary. I sold cell phones. Did construction for a little while. Now I'm an attorney, but I've always had a mindset where when I walk into a room, I think I'm the best in the room. Very, very rarely, and if I'm not, I know I'm capable of becoming the best in the room.
Right? Yeah, I don't really have that, but yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah, like, and I think what I mean by that is like what you said, right? You want to be the top draw. Like,
yeah.
I've heard it often said in wrestling, and I think this is true in life. If you're not in this business to become the world champion, you shouldn't be in the business.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So do you see that in yourself? Like whatever you do, you're like, I want to be the best at this.
If I'm not, then why am I here? You
Right.
know, it's and that kind of goes back to why I quit baseball. I wasn't going to be the best.
Right.
I couldn't be the best no more.
Sure.
So like, why am I sticking around?
Right.
You know, this wrestling thing, I can rock and roll with that. Am I the best? No, I'm not the best. I mean, I'm not booked on WrestleMania. I mean, obviously, but I think I put a post the other day that everyone that told me I didn't belong in this business aren't in the business no more.
Right.
You're gonna get run over by the freight train. You're standing on the tracks and the train's coming through butthead.
Yeah.
You know? That's welcome to the big leagues, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just, I mean, whatever, you know, I try to just be the best I can be. And I've always, like, when we talk about like the confidence and the lack of confidence.
Sure.
I swear every match before I go to the ring, I swear I kind of, like I say, I pump myself up, get ready. And every match, I'm just thinking, this is the night I ruin it all. This is the night where I get exposed. This is the night where I'm not as good as I thought I was. This is the night where everyone finds out that I'm not. That always enters my head. Keeps me on point. But then the music hits and it just goes away. Yeah. So
it's funny you say that, because I remember, so I've had a whopping 2 matches since I came back, but both of them, there's a moment. In fact, the first one especially.
Yeah.
I'm in the back and I'm sitting there and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was like, what am I doing? I didn't even have gimmicks. I still don't. Like, I don't really haven't figured out what I'm doing yet, you know? It's just these things where they're like, hey, we need a guy, you're booked, right? And
yeah,
at Jarevko, he had like 5 people cancel, so he needed me to come in.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was there. Yeah, you were there. And so both times, the first one especially, I go, I'm an old man. Like, what am I doing? You know, nobody out there is going to like what I'm doing. And it's going to look garbage. I'm going to feel like garbage. This is stupid. I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
As soon as I walked through the curtain, it went away. Yeah. And then I had a fan, you know, it was funny because I was messaging someone telling him that right before. And then when and then when the match was over, sent me a message and they're like, so how did it go? And I was like, actually, it went really well. Yeah. And I was like, and that's a problem because now I want more. You know what I mean?
and that's when you're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
That's always the thought in your head is like, now it's like, because I've probably had like 1,300 matches. Yeah. And I swear that I still suck at this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Like, this is like, every time I think this is the night. And even when I have bad ones, everyone's like, that was great. And I'm like,
yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, if you say so.
That's one thing I've liked about working with Johnny Jeter. You know, he was in the WWE.
Okay,
yeah. And he's the one who kind of he really trained me. Like, I wasn't fully trained before, and he finished it off for me. This is the first time in my life where I feel like I know, like, I could go in the ring and I could go, like, I could work. But he was the one who said, he's like, dude, he broke it down so well. He just is like, this is really simple. You just need to learn the rolls, the bumps. Like, you need to learn, you learn the locks, and then the rest is just that stuff, but in different contexts, Yeah. So like, it was really true, because like the first match, I mean, I'm kind of smarting everybody up here, but like that first match, we're
kayfabe.
Right. Newsflash. No,
23.
Yeah, but we talked about, we were, the guy I was working is just like, have you ever taken a tornado DDT? I was like, no. And he's like, we'll just do this. And I go, simple enough. Sounds good. Yeah. Right. And I took it, went fine. You know what I mean? I get to the back. And the guy I knew was like, he goes, you ever taken one of those before? And I go, no. And he goes, look great. I was like,
nice.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's just so you're right. Like, I was sitting there and I was thinking, I was like, I don't know enough of this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know enough stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know this stuff. And went out there, and I mean, it was a great match. It was easy when you have a good, easy guy to work. I mean, the Aguilar, the guy I worked from Arizona, was great.
Who is he?
His name is Aguilar. He works.
He sucks. No, I don't know. I'm just talking smack.
He does a lucha gimmick. He came up from Arizona.
Okay.
And worked the show, and super nice guy, super easy to work with, super light, couldn't feel a thing. I'd work him a million times. He was great.
Nice.
And then of course Nuck was the ref, so that made it 100 times easier.
Oh yeah.
Because he knew he would talk to us over there.
He's a good ring general.
Dude, he's great. Yeah. Love him. I wish I could have him every match. So
him and Wiggles.
Yeah.
Toby and Sparky are great too.
Yeah,
they're all really good.
I would love to work with all those guys. But real quick before we end, I want to talk with you. So now, I mean, you're heading the sports program for your entire school district, right?
To an extent. So what we have here, this is kind of a cool story. So when I was down on my luck and I needed a job, I interviewed for a campus supervision job with my school district. I needed to get some money. You know what I mean? And then I looked at the hours and I'm like, It was lunch recess basically, and a few other hours basically then. So I thought, when I did the interview, I kind of pitched as, what if I ran sports during the recess? Let's do kickball, soccer, mushball, whatever. And I'm like, oh, we really like that idea. I'm like, cool. So I do that for years, and then later on, the position I currently anyways, the position I currently have, they offered, part of it was that I'd be running a sports program, and they gave me the papers, and I'm like, this is what I was doing at the one school. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, but you want this district wide? Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like here, like we have our little middle school leagues. This is for the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. They get to play all the other schools in town, just like you would in middle school. So what we're doing is, and actually the 4th, January the 4th, will be the first volleyball game. So volleyball season's about to start. We just finished soccer. So we do soccer, volleyball, and basketball,
Nice.
district wide. So I'm like really happy about this. This is like really cool to me personally. And if it wasn't for the sake of my sanity, like I would do more sports.
Sure.
But it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Fortunately, volleyball and basketball are way easier than soccer.
Sure.
Because soccer, I got to set up the nets, but the way we do it, we do 2 games at a time. So I'm setting up 4 nets and all the flags. So it takes me close to an hour every day to do that.
Wow.
By myself. But now volleyball is a little easier. Just throw the nets up. Let's go rock and roll. And then basketball, you press a button.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, we can do that. But like, I really like this. We might do kickball. We've talked about doing baseball, adding another sport, but it's a lot of fun and it's really cool. And like, it's like one of those things like, man, I wish I had this when I was a kid because this is really, really neat. Because you got kids like they're playing their cousin from another school or something like that.
Sure.
So it's really cool. It's really cool to do this.
And is it fun just because you get to be a part of the sports or the kids or both?
Yeah, it's really cool because like I'll see like a parent in the crowd and it's like someone I played soccer with. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, their kid's playing soccer now. Not only is their kid playing soccer, they got the same name.
Yeah.
It's really kind of neat to see that. I know I really like this a lot. It's a lot of work, like I said, but it's pretty awesome actually. And then the fact that my buddy Juwan I was telling you about, he runs the drop-in program in basketball camp when he's back from Germany. So we have like some of the kids that like have heard I'm a wrestler and like hear about things. I'm like, well, you didn't know? I'm like, you know Mr. Hodges? I'm like, oh yeah, Mr. Hodges from the Steam Center. I'm like, we're the tag team champs. Look. They show them like a picture on my phone. Like, we're the tag team champions. And they're like, Mr. Martin and Mr. Hodges are the champs? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool because he runs that. And actually it reminds me, I lent him like 3 of my Wii remotes. I need to get those back. They're over the center right now.
That's
I
awesome.
might have to send a text message like right now, actually. Mr. Jones needs to give those back to me.
That's awesome. Man, so it sounds like you found your calling there.
I hope so.
Yeah. So tell us, there's a couple of things that I ask everybody on this. And I'm going to ask these to you to kind of wrap up. What would you say is your biggest success in life?
Probably this house, honestly.
Oh yeah?
Because like I always had a vision for my dream house when I was a kid. And I am currently living it.
Nice.
Like all these little like things I wanted to do. Oh, my aunt's not done yet. I got to finish the bar downstairs, which I've been saying for 5 years now. But I mean, it's got to be this. This is literally just. Let's just say it when I meet a lady at the bar, and she opens the door. It's not too much longer. Before
it's funny. I always tell people, and I think you're kind of like this, and this is one of the reasons why I was kind of drawn to you. I think pretty quickly is I always tell people, I go, my interests haven't changed since the age of 5. Like I'm the Rocky video games, pizza, and movies.
Yeah.
Like, I built you've seen pictures of the Rocky Theater, and in my basement I've got an arcade cabinet and I've got, pinball machine and all that stuff. And so it's cool when my son, he brings his buddies over and they're like, you've got a theater, you've got an arcade cabinet. And this is just, it's so funny because I look at my son and I'm like, he just thinks it's like, yeah, it's Thursday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just the house.
Yeah.
So the thing too is because like a lot of times I come home because I'm busy, like I said, with the sports and all that. And so many times I come home, I walk upstairs, I throw some Epsom salt in the bathtub, I lay in there for about an hour, I get out, I lay in the bed for about an hour, watch YouTube or Raw or whatever it's on. I don't use none of this stuff. I haven't been in the hot tub downstairs in 3 or 4 months. Right. So it's like one of those deals.
Yeah. It's funny. Same thing. Like the arcade cabinet I used a lot for about 3 or 4 during COVID. I used it a lot, but yeah, I haven't turned it on in months. So, So that's your biggest success. What would you say is your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Don't take woodshop, take drama. That would probably definitely be the biggest one. Don't work for Lance Cardoza. Or Manny Fernandez. I got the shovel out now. Here we go. Let's rock and roll. There ain't no way they're watching this. Biggest failures, yeah, those. I say my biggest failure was just being so down on myself, like in 2008, 2009. I just like that. Actually, yeah, I would say that because I literally wasted my mid-20s, which would have been the prime of my life, and I was just like so depressed on it not being like the high school years anymore. No one likes you when you're 23, right?
Yeah.
I had that mindset, and like I said, I got in terrible shape.
Yeah.
I got lazy. I looked like garbage.
Was there something during that time that did that, or was it just generally, like you said, you're getting older, you're sad that you're out of high school, you're not where you wanted to be when you were that age? Is that kind of what was going on?
I think part of it was the economic depression.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think that didn't help. I had a job. I was working at the old Hollywood video stores when they were already deep in a bankruptcy.
Sure.
So I was getting like 10 hours a week. You know, so I wasn't like I was going in the red every month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then like that didn't help. I mean, I had there was a lady I was kind of seeing at the time, which I have not seen since. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe the one that got away. Well, no, probably not. But yeah, it was like I had that mindset that like, okay, my best years are already over, and I'm 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And then until Hood Slam happened, I didn't kick out of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that saying in The Office. I wish there was a way to know you're living the good old days before they're over. I thought they were already over. They weren't.
Yeah. You know, that's something too that I've found really interesting too, is I tend to not look back, you know, and what I mean by that is I look back and I have fond memories, but when they're over, they're over. Like when I went to high school, or when I graduated high school, I never really went back to like a homecoming game. I haven't, you know, do those things. And I have some friends that they do that. And I just always think to myself, my saying, you're saying this, you know, the story only ends one way. Mine is I haven't even yet. You know what I mean? Like my best days are still ahead of me, you know, and it's cool to peak, you know, to see the pinnacle at, you know, 41, 42, in the middle, and look for that next thing. I have a very similar story. I mean, when you met me, I was heavy. I was 350 pounds when I was.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was gigantic and super unhealthy. I sometimes tell people stories about what I ate, and I'm like, yeah, you don't get to 350 without a few questionable stories when it comes to
a few cows on there.
Yeah, but you know, there's a lot of stories that involve easy cheese, you know. But like, yeah, you know, still working out, still doing those things, and getting back into it. I feel the same way you do. I was like, I'm in better shape in my 40s than I was in my 30s. You know what I mean? And so, So last big question here for you, deep question. I try to ask people, and that is, one day, you know, hopefully a long time from now, you're going to pass away. Whenever someone passes away, there's a funeral and someone gives a eulogy. What is one thing that you would want someone to say in your eulogy about you?
Oof. Oh man, you're laying it on heavy here. I think it's not so much what they would say. I think what I would like is them to walk up to the podium and every single person to just go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like smile and shake their head like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just be story time.
Yeah.
The rest of the way. Like I could say he was a nice guy.
Yeah. Right.
But nah, I think I've given people good memories.
Yeah.
Hope I do more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know how to like put words in their mouths, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's like just kind of like, oh boy, let me tell you about Johnny.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is you're doing a pirate gimmick. One of my favorite scenes from Pirates of the Caribbean is the scene where Captain Jack Sparrow is first captured, and the admiral, I think is who he is. He looks at him and he goes, "You're the worst pirate I've ever heard of." And his response is, "But you have heard of me." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm the worst wrestler you've ever seen. You've ever heard of, but you've heard of me.
Yeah. And so
there you go. That's what I want. I want that to be I am the worst wrestler you've ever seen, but you have heard of me.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is that one thing that I did the podcast we were talking offline about this. I did the podcast with Polyamorous Ruth a couple shows ago. And man, I've never had such a wide range of responses to a podcast. I mean, you're my 18th podcast, so it's not like I'm a pro, right? But I mean, like, I was surprised at how wide the reaction was. And after a few days, I just went, at least they're talking, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, well, good. Well, we've been going almost 2 hours, so appreciate you taking some time.
That's what she said. I had to get one of those in there.
You got it. Yeah. No, I appreciate you coming in and talking with me. Let's do this.
That's again. What she said. Yeah. All right. I'll stop. Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
No, I say this in every one of these, but we got to do this again. Like, we'll do.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll do this again down the road, and we'll talk more about where Johnny Butabi ends up. So
let's think. How about around spring break? Because I'll be a little more available then. We'll be after Entertainia, Hood Slam Entertainia, which for you wrestling fans is. You ever notice how WWE doesn't say wrestling except for WrestleMania? Well, this is our Entertainia.
Yeah.
So that's right. It'll be after Entertainia. We'll see if I still got the ship. I might have another. Maybe I got 8 or 9 under my belt by then. So that sounds good. All
right, man. Well, good. Well, this has been the Edlow Podcast. This is the part where I'm supposed to say subscribe. Probably should have said that at the beginning too, but yeah, subscribe. Thanks for listening.
Good times.